You own a car, but the bank owns you for the next 7 years. You own a house, but spend 30 years as a slave to the mortgage. You own 3 streaming services, 2 gym memberships, and a closet full of clothes you forgot you bought, but somehow you still can't afford to quit the job you hate. Tell me, who really owns whom? There's a trick being played on you. It's so old, so deeply embedded in the fabric of modern life that you mistake it for normal. You think freedom means the ability to buy more. The truth is darker than that. The truth is that every purchase you make, every upgrade, every item you swipe your card for, is another chain. And the people who designed this system, they knew exactly what they were doing. They studied you. They studied your grandfather. They built a machine so perfect that you'd beg to climb inside it. This is a story of how owning less became the only path to actually owning yourself, and why the people who figured this out a century ago made sure you'd never learn it in school. Let me take you back to a specific moment in history. The year is 1929, October, Wall Street. You know the story, or you think you do. The market crashes. Fortunes evaporate. Men in expensive suits throw themselves from windows because the numbers on paper that defined their entire existence just disappeared. But here's what they don't tell you in the history books. Here's the part that got buried. In the wreckage of that collapse, in the soup lines and the shanty towns, something strange happened. People who had lost everything, who had nothing left but the clothes on their backs and maybe a single suitcase, they reported something unexpected. They said they felt lighter. They said for the first time in years, they could breathe. There was a man named Charles. I read about him in a collection of oral histories from the Depression. Charles had been a banker in Chicago. 3-piece suits, a house in the suburbs, 2 cars, a wife who wore furs. When the crash came, he lost it all in a matter of weeks. The house, the cars, the job, even the wife. She left him for a man who still had money. Charles ended up in a camp outside Sacramento, living in a tent made of canvas and hope. He worked odd jobs, picking fruit mostly, sleeping under stars. And in a letter he wrote to his sister in 1932, he said something that haunted me when I first read it. He said, "For 20 years I was rich, and I never had a single day of peace. Now I have nothing, and I sleep like a baby. I finally understand that I was never the one who owned all those things. They owned me." That letter should be required reading in every school in America. But it's not. Because the people who rebuilt the economy after the Depression, they learned something from Charles and the millions like him. They learned that people who own nothing are dangerous. Not because they're violent, not because they're radical, but because they're free. And free people don't make good consumers. So they built a new system. It took time. Through the 1930s, through the war years, through the late 1940s, they laid the groundwork. And then, in the 1950s, they flipped the switch. They called it the American dream, but it was really the American trap. Here's how it worked. First, you convince people that happiness is a thing you can purchase, not an experience, not a state of mind, a thing, a shiny, manufactured, depreciating thing. Second, you make that thing just expensive enough that people can't pay for it all at once. Third, you introduce credit. Beautiful, seductive, poisonous credit. You let people have the thing now and pay for it later, with interest, with lots of interest. The first credit card in America that ordinary people could use was introduced in 1950 by Diners Club. It started small. a few restaurants in New York. But the idea, the concept, it spread like a virus. By 1958, American Express launched their card. By 1966, Bank of America had created what would become Visa, and the floodgates opened. Suddenly, you didn't need to save for months to buy something. You could have it today, pay for it tomorrow, or next month, or over the next 3 years at 19% interest. Do you understand what happened in that moment? They discovered a way to weaponize human psychology. See, humans are terrible at calculating future pain. We're brilliant at feeling present desire. Show someone a new television, a new car, a new couch, and their brain lights up with want. Tell them they'll have to pay for it over the next 36 months, and that number doesn't feel real. It's abstract. It's future. It's a problem for future them. Present them gets the shiny thing. Future them deals with a bill, except future them becomes present them, and suddenly you're drowning. The data tells the story. In 1950, the average American household had virtually no consumer debt. Some had mortgages, sure, but consumer debt, debt from buying stuff, was almost non-existent. By 1960, the average household carried about $300 in consumer debt. That's $3,000 in today's money. By 1970, it had doubled. By 1980, it had tripled. Today, the average American household carries over $8,000 in credit card debt alone. Add in car loans, student loans, personal loans, and you're looking at people who owe more than they make in a year. But here's the truly diabolic part. They made it normal. They made it expected. If you talk to someone in their 20s or 30s today and suggest they shouldn't have any debt, they look at you like you're insane. Debt is just part of life, they'll tell you. Everyone has debt. How else are you supposed to live? And that's how you know the trap is complete, when the prisoners start defending the prison. Let me tell you about another person. Her name was Elaine. I met her 3 years ago at a conference on minimalism. She was 76 years old, sharp as a knife, and she had a story that cracked my understanding of the world wide open. Elaine grew up in the 1950s in a suburb of Detroit. Her father worked at the Ford plant. Good job, union job, steady. Her mother stayed home with the kids. They had one car, a small house, a television they bought in 1956 and kept until it died in 1971. 15 years. Same TV. Elaine told me that when she was growing up, nobody she knew had debt except for their mortgage. Nobody. If you wanted something, you saved for it. You put money aside every week in an envelope. When the envelope had enough, you went to the store and bought the thing. Cash. End of transaction. The idea of buying something you couldn't afford yet would have seemed insane. It would have seemed shameful. It would have seemed like admitting you had no self-control. Then, in 1968, Elaine got married. Her husband worked in advertising, one of the big firms in Detroit that handled car accounts, and he started bringing home a different message. The message was this: you deserve it now. Why wait? Why deprive yourself? You work hard. You should enjoy life. And enjoy life meant buy things, new things, nicer things. Things that showed the neighbors you were doing well. They bought a new car every 3 years. They bought furniture on credit. They bought clothes they didn't need because they were on sale. They bought and bought and bought. And Elaine said she remembered feeling something shift inside her during those years. She said it felt like drowning, but in slow motion, like quicksand made of receipts. By the time she was 40, in 1987, she and her husband had everything. A big house in a nice neighborhood, 2 new cars, a boat they used maybe 4 times a year, a basement full of exercise equipment, closets packed with clothes, and they were miserable. Her husband had a heart attack at 48, not fatal, but close. The doctor told him it was stress. Work stress, financial stress, the stress of maintaining a lifestyle that required both of them to work 60-hour weeks just to keep the payments current. That heart attack saved their lives. Elaine said they spent 6 months in recovery, not just physical recovery for her husband, but life recovery for both of them. They asked themselves a question that most people never ask. What if we just stopped? What if we sold the big house, sold the boat, sold one of the cars, and just stopped trying to keep up? So they did. They sold almost everything, moved into a small condo, 1 car between them, closets with maybe 10 outfits each, no debt, none. And Elaine told me that the day they made the last payment, the day they were finally free and clear, she cried. Not sad tears. Relief. Pure, overwhelming relief. Now, the system doesn't want you to hear Elaine's story. The system doesn't want you to meet Charles from the Depression. The system needs you to believe that more is always better, that ownership equals success, that the person with the most stuff wins. Because if you start to question that, if you start to calculate the real cost of your purchases, not in dollars, but in hours of your life, the whole thing falls apart. Let me make this concrete for you. Let's say you make $25 an hour at your job. Not bad. Better than a lot of people. Now let's say you want to buy a new car. Nothing fancy. Something reliable. $30,000. You finance it because that's what everyone does. 5-year loan at 6% interest. Your monthly payment is about $580. Over 5 years, you'll pay nearly $35,000 for that $30,000 car. $5,000 in interest alone. But here's the real math. At $25 an hour, you're bringing home maybe $18 after taxes. To make $580, you have to work 32 hours. That's 4 full days. Every single month for 5 years. You are trading 4 days of your life every month for 60 months for a car. 240 days total. That's 8 months of your life traded, gone, exchanged for a depreciating asset that will be worth maybe $10,000 by the time you've paid it off. 8 months of your life for a car. Do you feel that? Do you feel the weight of that transaction? Now multiply it. The house, the furniture, the gadgets, the subscriptions, the clothes, the restaurants, the vacations you put on credit. Add it all up, and what do you get? You get people who spend their entire lives, 40, 50, 60 years, working jobs they hate, to buy things they don't need, to impress people they don't like. And they do it because the system told them this is what success looks like. There's a term in economics called the hedonic treadmill. It means that no matter how much you acquire, your baseline level of happiness stays the same. You buy the new phone, you're excited for a week, maybe 2, then it becomes normal. So you need the next thing, the next upgrade, the next dopamine hit. You're a rat in a maze, and the maze has no exit. Just more corners, more turns, more cheese that never quite satisfies. The people who designed this system The marketers, the advertisers, the credit companies, they understand human psychology better than most psychologists. They know about the hedonic treadmill. They know about status anxiety. They know about fear of missing out. They know about the deep, primal human need to belong, to be accepted, to be seen as successful. And they exploit every single one of those vulnerabilities. In the 1950s, a man named Edward Bernays, the nephew of Sigmund Freud, pioneered the field of public relations. He didn't call it advertising. He called it engineering consent. He understood that you could make people want things they didn't need by linking those things to deeper emotional needs. You don't sell a car by talking about horsepower and fuel efficiency. You sell it by making it represent freedom, masculinity, success, sex appeal. You sell the feeling. The object is just the delivery mechanism. Bernays worked for the tobacco companies. He convinced women to start smoking by calling cigarettes torches of freedom and linking them to women's liberation. He worked for the food industry. He convinced Americans to eat bacon and eggs for breakfast by getting doctors to endorse it as healthy. He understood that if you could control the story, you could control the behavior. And every advertiser since then has followed his playbook. Today, it's more sophisticated. Today, they have algorithms. They track every click, every pause, every scroll. They know what you want before you know you want it. They serve you ads so perfectly targeted that it feels like they're reading your mind, and maybe they are. Not literally, but close enough. They've studied millions of people just like you. They know the patterns. They know the triggers. They know that if they show you the right product at the right time with the right message, you'll buy it, even if you don't need it, even if you can't afford it, even if it will make your life objectively worse. This is the trap. This is the machine. And it's running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every single day of your life. You wake up, you check your phone, you see ads. You drive to work, you see billboards. You listen to the radio, you hear commercials. You watch TV, you sit through ads. You browse the internet, ads everywhere. Even the content that isn't explicitly advertising is advertising. Influencers showing you their perfect lives, their perfect homes, their perfect wardrobes. All of it designed to make you feel inadequate. All of it designed to make you buy. And it works. God, it works. The average American is exposed to somewhere between 4,000 and 10,000 ads per day. Most of them you don't even consciously register. They slip past your awareness and lodge in your subconscious, building associations, creating desires, shaping your sense of what's normal, what's necessary, what's desirable. You think you're immune. You think you're too smart to fall for it, but you're not. Nobody is. That's the point. It's not about intelligence. It's about repetition. It's about saturation. It's about attacking you from so many angles that eventually your defenses crumble. So what's the way out? How do you escape a system this pervasive, this powerful, this deeply embedded in the structure of modern life? The answer is simpler than you think, but harder than you can imagine. You own less. Radically less. You draw a line and you say, this far and no further. You stop playing the game. I know what you're thinking. That sounds great in theory, but I have responsibilities. I have a family. I have bills. I can't just opt out. And you're right. You can't just flip a switch and become a monk. But you can start. You can take one step, then another, then another. You can begin the process of unraveling the chains. It starts with awareness. You have to see the trap before you can escape it. Look at your life right now, honestly. How much of what you own do you actually use? How much of it brings you genuine, lasting joy versus temporary pleasure? How much of it did you buy because you needed it versus because you felt like you should have it? Walk through your house and touch every object. Ask yourself, is this worth the hours of my life I traded for it? Most of the time, the answer will be no. The next step is to stop the bleeding. Cancel the subscriptions you forgot you had. Stop buying things on impulse. Institute a waiting period. If you want something, write it down and wait 30 days. If you still want it after 30 days, and you can pay cash for it, then buy it. You'll be shocked at how many things you forget about or lose interest in during that waiting period. Then you start shedding. You sell things. You donate things. You throw things away. Not all at once. This isn't about punishing yourself or living in an empty room. It's about being intentional. About keeping only what serves you. Everything else is dead weight. Everything else is stealing your energy, your attention, your freedom. As you own less, something strange happens. You start to feel lighter, literally and metaphorically. Your home becomes easier to clean. You spend less time organizing, maintaining, worrying about your stuff. You have more mental space, more clarity. And crucially, you need less money. When you need less money, you have more options. You can take a lower-paying job that you actually enjoy. You can work fewer hours. You can save more. You can invest in experiences instead of objects. You can buy back your time. Time. That's what this is really about. The system wants to steal your time by convincing you to trade it for things. The way out is to recognize that your time is the most valuable thing you have. It's the only thing you can never get more of. Every hour you spend working to pay for something you don't need is an hour you'll never get back. An hour you could have spent with your kids, with your partner, pursuing a passion, reading, thinking, creating, living. When you own less, you own yourself. You're not beholden to the bank. You're not chained to a job you hate because you need the paycheck to cover the payments. You're not spending your weekends maintaining a house that's too big, or a yard that's too complicated, or a collection of hobbies you convinced yourself you'd take up but never did. You're free. Actually free. Not the fake freedom of having lots of choices about what to buy. Real freedom. The freedom to wake up in the morning and decide how to spend your day without the crushing weight of debt and obligation pressing down on you. This terrifies the system because the system needs you hungry. It needs you anxious. It needs you comparing yourself to your neighbors and finding yourself lacking. It needs you to believe that you're just one purchase away from happiness, one upgrade, one new thing. It needs you on the treadmill, running forever, never quite reaching satisfaction. When you step off the treadmill, when you say, "No, thank you, I'm done playing this game," the system loses its power over you. And that's why they'll never teach this in schools. That's why the people who figured this out in the 1930s, the people like Charles, who lost everything and found freedom in the loss, their stories get buried. Because if everyone knew the truth, if everyone understood that owning less is the path to owning yourself, the entire economy would have to restructure. We'd have to build a world based on something other than endless consumption. We'd have to value time over money, experiences over objects, freedom over status. And the people who profit from the current system, they can't allow that. But you don't need their permission. You never did. The choice has always been yours. You can keep playing the game. Keep chasing the next thing. Keep trading your life for stuff. Or you can stop. You can draw the line. You can reclaim your time, your energy, your freedom. You can own less, and finally, truly own yourself.